Welcome. It's the 8th day of November 2014. My name is Doug Owen, and this is Blacklisted Radio. I'm the senior editor of BlacklistedNews.com. You can join me on Twitter. BLN Radio is the handle. And, of course, you can find this show in a variety of formats, including on TuneIn Radio, on our Roku channel. Just look for Blacklisted News or my name under Roku, and you should find us. Stitcher, iTunes, all of the usual places. Of course, our Spreaker channel, and, of course, the home, BlacklistedRadio.com. Well, this is a pretty interesting day, trying to really dissect and find a little bit of sanity in some of these headlines that we're going to be covering. Of course, the news you can find at blacklistednews.com, and that's where we get all of the headlines. Obama authorizes 1,500 more troops to Iraq. Not a big shock, except to some of you out there that voted for him because you thought that he would end the Iraq war. But with the ever-growing presence of ISIS or IS or ISIL or whoever they may be, probably for the most part, I think that they are private mercenaries. You hear about the jihadists all the time. Oh, the jihadists, they go from place to place just fighting. People don't do that. Okay, people don't just travel internationally to fight other wars against people that they really have no connection to. You have to have money, cash money, to get people to travel thousands of miles to fight alongside others that don't necessarily share the same views. I mean, I guess a lot of people in the Middle East do want freedom or maybe Sharia law or some other form of governance that they see as more ethical and more traditional, less infidel influenced, less U.S. and Western influenced. That makes sense to me, makes sense to most people. But what we have today is a band of mercenaries traveling the Middle East, being paid by a variety of players, including the United States, who militarily funds all of these groups. Regardless of what you think about the Middle East and what's happening there and what should happen, because that's where we're at today. We had the big midterm elections, and as far as I can tell, there are no people that were elected that believe that we should not have war, that we should not engage ISIS, that we should not spend billions of tax dollars to continue to drop weapons into the hands of ISIS, to arm moderate rebels, whatever that means, probably private mercenary contractors that are traveling state to state for the State Department and other players on the global circuit. So I guess lack of choice should be more apparent than ever. I do want to talk about the elections mildly or briefly because I do think that there are some things that we can glean from them. But the elephant in the room is the fact that there are no people in Congress or the Senate that believe that we should disengage, that we should actually look at our foreign policy and those that are steering it, and maybe question some of the, faux pas, weapons falling in the hands of the wrong people. What's the solution? Give more weapons to people that we really don't know. Now, you listening to this podcast probably have a inside track on most of these topics and issues that we cover. You're probably a little bit more aware of what is happening in the world, who is benefiting, and why we continue to, at least on the surface, fight these never-ending wars that really, I can't find an end to any of the current quagmires that we have created for the U.S. military. So there's a lot of distractions. The guy who shot bin Laden, he's come forward. The Navy SEALs, oh my God. Now we're hearing this story that I don't know. I was just blown away this morning by watching some of the infographics that they have of the story of the man who said that he shot bin Laden. And in the infographic, it's not an infographic. I guess it's just a computer simulation of the incident. They still have bin Laden in the turban hiding behind women. That has been completely debunked. Almost none of the coverage of the assassination of bin Laden. And that's what it was. I mean, obviously, if you had any common sense, and, well, you know, I doubt that there's a lot of people in the military that have that, but I've never bought it, not because I think it's a grand conspiracy, but it just makes no sense. It's not a conspiracy theory. Why would you kill the mastermind, the El Jefe of Al-Qaeda? Why would you kill him? Why wouldn't you torture him and extract secrets and information and find out other high-level players that he's been in contact with? I mean, he's just too important to whack. It just doesn't make any sense. And, you know, I mean, I could let my 8-month-old son run this operation. I think he would see through some of the glaring problems, glaring issues with the story. But they're bringing it back out to kind of generate, I think, a little distraction away from the fact that we are going back to Iraq. Now, we've never left Iraq, and the plan was to fight a war into perpetuity, forever and ever and ever. And the neocons that have been re-empowered, re-emboldened by the latest midterm election are the same ones, the Kagans, the Victoria Nulands, all of those people that do have a lot of influence and are laying the plan out for the U.S. foreign policy. None of those people are there's no exit strategy. Okay, it's just continually occupy and control. I was watching this documentary on PBS, and I just happened to turn it on. It's about ISIS, and yeah, about 90% of it you can dismiss. But it was talking about the lead up to Iraq, or actually the days after. And I kind of forgot about this. You know, it kind of went down the memory hole where we had Paul Bremer, Henry Kissinger's right-hand man, working in tandem with the new government that they had just overthrown, or they overthrown Saddam Hussein, and they were trying to create a new interim government for the Iraqi people. And one of the big, I guess, problems was that they decided to disband 300,000 army members. And as soon as they did that, not days after, we started seeing terrorism, the first bombings, the first attacks on the infrastructure by former army. So, you know, as much credit as the political wonks and other New World Order cronies give Henry Kissinger and Paul Bremer and their ilk, you just start realizing that these people either A, not very bright, and I think that that's part of it. I mean, you're kind of isolated. You're spending too much time at the Brookings Institute. You're spending too much time at the Council on Foreign Relations, drinking high-priced coffee and smelling each other's farts. You don't really have a good understanding of what's happening in places like Baghdad. And Paul Bremer was just this crony that I almost completely forgot that has resurfaced now with this latest focus on IS. So 1,500 troops now. Who knows where it will be? All of you anti-war people on the left that bought into the rhetoric, you were drinking the Kool-Aid. I'm sure some of you are shocked. This is, I guess, a little bit different because we have pretty much for the last 10 years just put private contractors into these areas and have allowed this mystique or this impression that there's not a foreign influence, that we have pretty much abandoned Iraq. And nothing could be farther from the truth. But, you know, it's a talking point for why we need to continue to support our allies and our friends in the region, like the Qataris that are using North Korean slaves. Here's an interesting piece to build the 2020 FIFA World Cup stadium. Cronyism and downright criminality and slave labor, nothing new to planet Earth, but it goes pretty much unchallenged in the mainstream media because, well, they own Al Jazeera. They bought it from Al Gore, or Al Gore bought it from, the Qataris still own a huge stake in Al Jazeera and CNN and, well, Amber Lyon, one of the, I guess, whistleblowers or one of the former reporters at CNN who came out, I don't know, about a year ago and kind of exposed the fact that the Qataris were cracking down on their political dissidents. Companies like IBM, Verizon, Apple, and other U.S. telecommunications companies were working, and private companies were working to help these countries basically assassinate their citizens. All of the dissenters and those that wanted the Arab Spring to continue to their own countries. You go to Saudi Arabia, go to Qatar, go to Jordan. There was an Arab Spring that did not flourish, and it's primarily because the United States and our corporate sponsors did not allow that to happen. So she came out and said, look, this is a big scam. The U.S. government and the media are working together to keep you in the dark. And some of these moral victories for the people in Tahrir Square in Egypt, these revolutions, these color revolutions that took shape right around the time that they're about to overthrow Muammar Gaddafi, they were really a distraction from what was happening, the cold, brutal reality on the ground in other U.S.-friendly countries. Big scam, and just one of the many examples of how the U.S. media, and that's why we do this podcast, we have to counter that media perception that is put out there. These altruistic countries that are really nice and really good people would not dare use slave labor. Well, the Democrats in this country love slave labor, and I'll tell you why. Because they were counting on immigrant workers or undocumented workers to vote in this election. Bill Moyers, I saw, PBS is one of the few channels I can stand because even though there's a lot of propaganda, there's actually some valuable information, and you get to hear the bankster gangsters, the globalist elite, all of these people that are very influential and powerful in the Council on Foreign Relations, cronies, talk almost ad nauseum about these topics. They're saying that this race was stolen. Voter suppression helped produce the lowest turnout in decades. Now, I like this idea because, I like the pitch because I think it's pretty witty. People aren't voting because the white man's keeping you away from it. The Republicans don't want you to vote. And yeah, there's been some changes to voter ID laws, and it really boggles me that we have people that don't have IDs in this country that vote. I mean, I can't buy Sudafed. I can't buy alcohol. I can't go to the DMV. I can't go almost anywhere in this country without a driver's license. You can't fly on a plane without a driver's license. You could try. You might even have the right to freely travel. I know some of you out there are ready to text me. Yes, you do have the right to do a lot of things, but that doesn't mean that you actually are able to do them. You may be able to do them in theory. On paper, it would seem that would be the law, but good luck. Good luck getting on a flight or, I don't know, getting on Amtrak. I mean, now we have so many requirements thanks to the security theater that we are paying for in this country. And by that, I mean that we believe that, putting ourselves in a position where we have to constantly be transparent with a government that is constantly, completely untransparent with us is going to make us safer. I mean, that's a really stupid thing to believe, but people do. On Tuesday, older white voters who traditionally support Republicans went to the polls in droves, while turnout among traditionally Democratic groups, the young, the minoritized. I didn't know you could be minoritized. I like this word here. This is from First Look. So this is part of the Intercept's Pierre Omidyar's piece here. The young, the minoritized, and the women was down. Women didn't come out to vote. The minoritized, the minorities didn't come out to vote. The young, who never come out to vote. I don't care I don't know any young people in this country that don't want an ID. Why? Because you got to have one to get into the bar. You got to get into the club. Woot, woot. Good luck getting into the club without your ID. So the people that seem to be disenfranchised and affected by these laws that didn't turn out are the groups that usually do not turn out. Now, the the takeaway from a lot of the articles that we're going to have today is that 33, our magic number, continues to pop up. The Lone Star State had the lowest voter turnout in the country at 33%, down 38% from 4 years earlier. Now, is that because we just don't have, I don't know, illegal immigrants, millions of them, parties where people that, are given snow cones and other free food and grab bags, a little gift bag, and they register you to vote for some Democrat? Those kind of parties are not happening. And those things do happen. I mean, across the country, not just here in the Republic of Texas, but across the nation and across the world. I mean, you have all of these little disingenuous trickster ways of getting people to vote. And let's not forget the voter manipulation that happened. Now, if the Democrats would have won, the alternative media, the right-wing media, would be a lot more vocal about voter suppression and the casting of ballots through these debold machines, the amount of votes being flipped. All the reports I saw were where votes were being flipped Democrat, and that might be just the coverage of by the media, the alternative media. But nonetheless, you would think with all of that, people would still be able to, significantly show a resounding support for the Democrats, considering all things considered. But no one, not The Intercept, not Bill Moyers, not any of the people on the left, can accept the fact that they have failed at their mandate. Barack Obama was elected to stop the wars, to shut down Guantanamo Bay, to bring transparency to the government. And if you have not had your heads in the dirt or in the clouds over the last 4 years, you may have realized, even if you're a Democrat, that the Democrats are, I can't tell the difference between Nancy Pelosi and Joe Biden and John Boehner and John McCain. They're just all a bunch of rich, ridiculously confused, and I would say stupid people. Really stupid people. I mean, they got a lot of smart people around them and a lot of money, and that kind of makes up for their low IQ, and they're just old. I'm not an ageist, but when you become, once you get to a certain age, I don't think that your focus is nearly what it once was on politics. You just don't have as much stuff to worry about anymore. You're on your way out. I know some of you older listeners are saying, "What the hell are you saying, Doug?" I'm just saying, like a person like Nancy Pelosi, what does she have to worry about? And when you have millions upon millions upon millions of dollars, those things become more important than running the world, or supposedly, ostensibly running the world and legislating. Anyway, point being, none of them could actually accept or maybe even entertain this idea that it could be that Republicans and Republicans are no different, and people are tired of lies. Now, the pendulum swings. 4 years from now, the people will probably be tired of the Republicans. This, if you're a political analyst, might be bad for the Republicans because, they're going to be broke dick and not do anything as per usual. And, what they're going to do is the exact same thing the Democrats would have done, and people will be less than satisfied with that. And when the Democrats win in a few years in the next term elections, then, voter suppression, blah, 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 blah. Those topics won't be brought up, and then we'll focus more on those debold machines that kept turning over votes to the Democrats. Voter suppression, is it happening? I guess, but the people that are being suppressed are probably not the most. Here's the thing. I guess I'm not that interested in it, because if you are a person that has no ID, that you're not even participating in society, and I'm not for going and fingerprinting every person and putting them into a biometric, national database that's going to be associated with your driver's license. And we've been covering that. That's where that's going to, the FBI and states and the Department of Homeland Security. That's where we're going with all of this. It's just, I guess my point is that in the world where we live under constant surveillance. The fact that you have people that don't have any kind of imprint on. I mean, how do you get a house? You have to. I mean, nowadays it's pretty common to get a credit check when you apply for an apartment. That's your new score. Your FICA, your WICA, all of, well, no, excuse me, your credit rating and the credit agencies, they get to determine what you pay for your apartment, whether you can get a home or not. I just don't buy into it. I'm just wondering who all these people are and what segment of society has no physical way of showing their identity in the 21st century, in 2014. And I can only think that the reason that Democrats are so upset about it is because it's the illegal immigrants that they love. And the aforementioned love of slavery and slave labor, that is the Democrats. They benefit more than almost anybody from having a population in this country. And this is how sad it is. The only people that want to vote for Democrats, apparently, are people that don't speak English. Makes sense. I mean, you're going to vote for these people because they're promising you goodies. They're speaking maybe your language, but probably not. I mean, how can you make an informed decision if you can't understand who these people are? On yesterday's, or excuse me, I think it was Thursday's Doomcast, poor Charlie McGrath, my co-host of I'm just go off on a tangent here for a moment because I know some of you that listen to the Doomcast were wondering what the hell happened. But my good friend Charlie McGrath, he has asthma, and it's really bad. This guy ends up in the hospital every other couple days, and it is a big deal. I mean, literally life-threatening. So we were doing the show Thursday, and it shows just how I think innocent maybe Charlie is when it comes to drugs and their interactions. But nonetheless, they've given him some kind of narcotic. I forget the name, diazepam, one of the PAMs. So it's a hardcore narcotic to basically slow him down, make him a little bit less prone to having an asthma attack. I guess it just slows your system down a little bit. At least that's what the doctor that prescribed it to him said. But anyway, we were on the show, and you could just tell. Blah, blah, blah. He was really out of it. And people were pretty upset about it because I think that most of you that tune into these podcasts want cutting-edge analysis. You want a little bit of rage and not nearly as sedated a show as we had the other day. But Charlie really had no idea. He's like, how can you tell? I'm like, well, it's because you're not a drug head. Now, people that don't do drugs don't realize how they can really, really affect them. And poor guy, he was in that situation where he is kind of oblivious to the effects of those kind of narcotics. And so, needless to say, most of the people that listen to the podcast were either thought it was hilarious because of the just slurring by Charlie and his inability to really be in the present, and the hilarity of me trying to steer a conversation into talking about cutting edge topics and things that we've discussed here today. And nonetheless, it's just another one of those we find examples of where people end up in the clutches of the pharmaceutical industrial complex and trying to save their lives. They end up on some kind of medication that is debilitating them. So I think a lot of people that are high on Oxycontin and other drugs may be voting for the Democrats. Charlie was not high enough to vote Democrat, but anyway, the reality is that we had a lot of people that were pretty upset about the show. I even had a few callers that left voicemails saying that we should pull the show, that it's a bad representation of the Doomcast, and I believe in letting things be, and it was a live show. It's a live recording, and sometimes, things get kind of, I wouldn't say out of control, but sometimes you realize, oh my God, we're doing a live show, and you're not even in it, man. Should we be doing this? Nonetheless, the show was pretty interesting, and I think we made a lot of headway. I think that his analysis, even under the slight influence of narcotics, was still better than a lot of the stuff you'll get on PBS, a lot of the stuff that I've been seeing on the News Hour as of late. So most of the people that are complaining about the war, that are complaining about the Republicrats and the Demopublicans and all of this are upset about the financial aspect of it. We can't afford another war. Now, I hate to tell all of you this, but actually I enjoy it. If we did not have war, constant, perpetual war, we may be able to actually fix some of the problems that we have today. All of you global warmers and people that believe that this is just the hubris of some people, that we can actually change the climate. All of you out there would be very disappointed to find out that we could have maybe had some impact on the climate. I doubt it, but we could have been doing a lot of things that were more sustainable, more environmentally friendly if we didn't spend all of our money in this perpetual war that will never end. I think that a lot of people look at this as a dollars and cents thing. A lot of the Republicans, it's not a moral issue. It's more of a money issue. So I saw this piece and I thought, well, it's important to kind of look at this, and it really shows you how far we have come. The reality is that it will take 6.25 billion man years to pay off the federal government liabilities, a mathematical impossibility. Mac Slavo writes this, and he highlights some statistics and some numbers of our $17.9 trillion of national debt. We often hear government officials and mainstream financial pundits throwing around numbers like a billion or a trillion. To most Americans, these numbers are indiscernible. They are so incredibly enormous that we can't even imagine what $1 billion actually looks like. And of course, there's some interesting pictures here that kind of show you what cash dollars would look like if we had them, and they pile over the Statue of Liberty 20 times, just stacking $100 bills. So the eventual realization is that if you do the math, you look at the numbers, you try to break down what it's going to take, because we always hear about this, especially from the Republicans who have just won a major victory in the Senate, is that we have to be more fiscally responsible. We have to tackle the deficit. That's why you have to pay 50% of your money in taxes, some of you more, and why corporations pay almost none. The reason for all of this is because we have to fix the deficit. We have to pay off the deficit. Now, I'm hard-pressed to remember a time where we actually had a balanced budget, a surplus, maybe during the technological revolution, the dot-com boom in the 90s under Clinton. Not that he would give proper credit where it is due. Of course, if you talk to Hillary Clinton, his wife, it wasn't Bill. She won't even give her own husband the credit. It was it's not the companies that created the jobs. They don't create jobs. The government. You have to give them all of the credit here. So let me just break this down. I think it's pretty interesting. How do we define the sizes of economies in dollars? Nope. These systems should be measured in terms of transcendent invariant units. Currencies are, by definition, variant because they are constantly changing relative to one another. This includes the dollar, which is itself measured against a basket of other currencies. This is the solution he proposes. I propose that GDP should be measured on the unit of man hours or man years. $20 per hour average wage, 2,000 hour average work year, because the buying power of an average man hour or man year shouldn't change much at all. Think about it. So if we take the latest BSGDP for the former U.S. of $16.8 trillion dollars. And if we use an average of $20 per hour or $40,000 per year, which is pretty average, we get an economy of 840 billion man hours or 420 million man hours to pay this off. And that's what I think people just don't get at all. We cannot pay off this deficit ever. So the point of talking about it and figuring out more ways to tax you and even companies is moot. There's no point in it. Okay, stop wasting my time, your energy, my life source, your cellular livelihood. It doesn't matter. Can't be paid off, won't be paid off, shouldn't even be part of the consideration. So that is what a lot of people need to understand. Okay, so we hear of all of these draconian measures and all of these sacrifices that you and I and everyone have to collectively put ourselves through. We have to undergo for the state. There's really almost no way of ever paying this off. It's going to have to be absolved. Who ends up paying? Who ends up not having to pay? That's going to be the question. There's no way around it. Now, I've got a lot of cop stuff, but I guess we're in the money realm. I want to talk about this JP Morgan Chase story. Chase paid $9 billion to keep a woman, Aline Fleischman, silent about its crimes. This is a huge story that came from Matt Taibbi and the Rolling Stone. Yes, he just recently left Pierre Omidyar's Intercept and the First Look Media Group. We talked about how, I think on the last podcast, if not a Doomcast, that this is pretty unprecedented, that the Glenn Greenwald, Laura Poitras, Jeremy Scahill, all operators and people I am very skeptical of and that have been put out there in front of the progressive community as truth tellers and good people, I guess that we can trust those people out there. They ganged up on Matt Taibbi, and I've always had questions about Matt Taibbi and his take on 9/11. After 9/11 happened, one of the things that he was really involved in was going after 9/11 truthers and trying to debunk the 9/11 truth groups and blah blah blah. He's been a detractor, if you will, and he seemed to really have an axe to grind against people that have more questions about why and how, and people that don't necessarily believe the government's official versions of anything, and you shouldn't. It doesn't matter what it is. No matter how silly the conspiracy theory sounds to you, you should never dismiss anything entirely, because we know that the people in power have a really bad track record, and conspiracy theories have a pretty good track record of actually being true. It just takes 20 to 30 to 40 years for you to hear about it. So anyway, this is a big story, a big, I don't know, maybe a blockbuster story. I don't know if it's going to have something to do with anything. First, I will say that Aline, I guess her name is Alayne, Aline Fleischman. She's really pretty, and that throws up a red flag. Why? Because when you put pretty people out there, it just has that Hollywood-ishness to it for me. If you're an ugly lady as a banker, that makes sense. If you're this beautiful lady, I don't know. It's just a red flag. Whenever you hear about the media or you see big stories and they have beautiful women, it's like the Fox News anchors. I just can't trust somebody that's that dolled up. They're selling me her, maybe not the story. Anyway, it's a blockbuster story, according to some. JP Morgan has been caught up. They marked 33% of loans. There's that number in 2006 as basically good to go, above subprime, even though their stated income was unreasonable for their professions. The JP Morgan Bank was giving out loans that they knew would not be able to be paid, and did this in complete disregard for even their own customer base and their own investors. And the reason that they could do that was because the U.S. government ultimately picked up the bill for all of this criminality. Now, let's see. Did this get cut off? Oh, yeah, here we go. I got the JP Morgan. I got the full thing here. So she tried to stay quiet. She really did. But after 8 years of keeping a heavy secret, the day came when Elaine Fleischman couldn't take it anymore. This is from Matt Taibbi. It was like watching an old lady get mugged on the street, she says. I thought I can't sit by any longer. Fleischman is a tall, thin, quick-witted securities lawyer in her late 30s with long blonde hair, pale blue eyes, and an infectious sense of humor that has survived some very tough times. She had to struggle to find work despite striking skills and qualifications, and a common symptom of the not-so-common condition of being called a whistleblower. Fleischman is the central witness in one of the biggest cases of white-collar crime in American history, possessing secrets that JP Morgan Chase CEO Jamie Dimon last year paid $9 billion, not $13 billion as regularly reported, more on that later, to keep the public from hearing. Back in 2006, as a deal manager at the gigantic bank, Fleischman, first witness, then tried to stop what she describes as, quote, massive criminal securities fraud, end quote, in the bank's mortgage operations. Thanks to confidentiality agreement, she kept her mouth shut since then. Quote, my closest family and friends don't know what I've been living with, she says. Quote, even my brother will only find out for the first time when he sees this interview. 6 years after the crisis that cratered the global economy, it's not exactly news that the country's biggest bank stole on a grand scale. Most of you know that. Most of the people out there know that banks are, criminal. That's why the more important part of Fleischman's story is that in the pains, Chase and the Justice Department took to silence her. So this is the collusion. Maybe why Jamie Dimon was in secret negotiations with the former, I don't know if he's still the Department of Justice's head, Eric Holder, but he had private meetings. We reported on those. People thought, wow, I mean, this is pretty powerful banking when you call Eric Holder the head of justice, and which I just find kind of funny. But this is the arbiter of truth and justice in the United States, and you get a secret meeting, private meeting with him. Okay, you're hard pressed to get that kind of attention unless you're somebody like a Jamie Dimon. So anyway, the past year she watched as Holder's Justice Department struck a series of historic settlement deals with Chase, billions of dollars being paid. Citigroup and Bank of America as well. The root bargain in these deals was cash for secrecy. The banks paid fines without trials or even judges, only secret negotiations that typically ended with the public shown nothing but vague quasi-official papers called, quote, statement of facts, which were conveniently devoid of any actual facts. It's about par for the course. And now with Holder about to leave his office, he's on his way out. He's on his farewell tour where bankers are just shoving cash into his pockets, and he'll start up some new consortium group where some investment group, or probably he'll become a consultant for a legal group for bankers. I mean, that's just the blatant disregard for people, really. I mean, you and I. The blatant disregard for the people that were most affected by this. So anyway, it gets kind of into a personal interest story with her and where she comes from and her days in Cornell Law School. But, the proof's in the pudding. Jamie should be going down. And I saw that and I said, wow, are the bankers going down? Is somebody going to go to jail? You can do life in prison for a pot cookie these days. You could. But you could still, the livelihoods and pensions and homes, literally homes from maybe millions of people in this country and around the world. In the aggregate, who knows how many people have been personally affected by this. I mean, most criminals, even murderers, they only have one victim, two victims. Even if you're a mass murderer on a grand scale and you're not in government, how many victims could you have? 50, 100? I mean, even the Bundys out there, the mass murderer types, how many? I mean, Charles Manson's. 20, 30, 40, 50 victims, not to diminish what they've done, but it's very, very small. It pales in comparison to the amount of people that were personally affected. And not just the people that lost the money, the families that were broken apart, the people that are living in abject poverty, the people that had to go on to subsistence, and the taxpayers that had to pay for those people to live. I mean, when you look at every metric, every mile marker of the economy, I mean, we've never had more people on food stamps. We've never had more student debt. We've never had more credit card debt, although that is going down. I will give it that. It's going down. And it's just because people are starting to say, wow, I can't afford anymore. Well, anyway, we'll see. I'm not holding my breath for JP Morgan's CEO, Jamie Dimon, that was personally invested in this, to face, a day in jail. I mean, an indictment would be nice. We have Rick Perry, the former governor of Texas. He's under indictment. Didn't see a orange jumpsuit. Didn't have to touch any cold steel bars in a cage. It's just, without getting too vitriolic, it is just unacceptable. It is amazingly appalling. And people should be really, really upset about it. And maybe that's why people aren't voting Democratic anymore. I don't know. How many of those people, I mean, when you look at black people in general, across the board in this country, they're not doing better than when Barack Obama was elected. They're just not. By every scale, financial, educational. I mean, you look at the people that voted for these Democrats, and they're completely underserved. And don't worry. I mean, you're going to be underserved by the Republicans as well. And so are you white people that voted in Republicans and others that thought that we needed the pendulum swing. And, I mean, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you think that we need to change something? And that's what people do. They're like, oh, this sucks. Let's go with the other team. Now they suck. Let's go with the other team. Nonetheless, JP Morgan's not the only one that's making headlines. HSBC, the Chinese bank, deliberately deceived the Treasury Select Committee and was in contempt of Parliament by claiming their fake solicitors were regulated. Whistleblower and financial activist Nicholas Wilson said Friday. Had a lot of whistleblowers coming out to shine the light on the criminality of these banking establishments that are too big to fail. The British-born investigator who is currently preparing a private prosecution against HSBC for its alleged role in widespread fraud. And this is sad. Okay, it's a private investigator, a private prosecution against HSBC, not the government, not the Parliament, or I'm not totally up on how the Justice Department and Parliament, if the way that would work legally. I'm just not up on the UK legal system. Good luck being up on the US legal system, where we have millions, over 4 million laws on the books that we're all supposedly, allegedly responsible to adhere to. Though blanket criminality that affects lots and lots of thousands and millions of people goes unchecked. I know I'm off on my tangent. I'm on my little soapbox here because I want people, and I know that most of you out there, we're preaching to the choir. That's why we need to expand this show to others, and that's why I do keep it, I think, somewhat tame and relevant to most average people. We don't try to go too high above people's heads here and trying to make it meta discussions about these little issues, but rather than just looking at the unfairness of the way average people are treated and how the political and financial elite treat one another. So anyway, this whistleblower, Nicholas Wilson, has decided to take it up in the wake of the recent fake solicitor scandal surrounded by controversial payday lender Wonga. You may have heard of Wonga. They're just another scam. They're another company that preys upon the poor, just like the Democrats and the Republicans. Thierry wrote to a major British bank on behalf of the Treasury Select Committee, the TSC, inquiring about policies with respect to unethical and aggressive debt recovery processes. That's right. They'll come after you, shake you down, call your mom, set up a fake Facebook page. So will the government, to come and get money to, just to ruin your life. To ruin your life after they try to do it financially. It's the complete disregard for you and your well-being, and ultimately just it's criminal. It's criminal. It's predatory. It is just downright disgusting. Had a guy try to buy some advertisements for his payday loan cash thing. It's called Gosh or Dosh. And I just had to tell him, I'm like, I'm just not interested in advertising for. Go through Google, go through one of the other, network media ad services if you want to advertise payday loans. But there's nothing that is sadder to me than people at the payday loan place, because they don't have any money and they're paying upwards over 20% in most cases, nationally, globally, to try to survive to the next week. Now they've put together some new, regulations in Texas. Now they have to say, this is not a long-term strategy for your debt problems, blah, blah, blah. They have a little disclaimer to say, but if you're in a position to get a payday loan, you're probably the least likely to be able to pay that amount of interest. And so anyway, I think it's a big scam, and these guys are just pretty disgusting. HSBC is worse than Wonga. In the case of the payday lender firm Wonga, investigation initiated by the OFT, the Office of Fair Trading, and subsequently pursued by the Financial Conduct Authority, FCA, revealed the firm had sent threatening letters to customers in arrears from legal firms that did not exist. So they had fake lawyers. This is so criminal, so horrible. They had people that would tell them, we're going to take your home, we're going to take your children's, in some cases, their children's college funds. They were going to ruin them. They were going to take their cars. They were going to put liens against their homes and assets. I mean, it's so bad. Well, one of the things that a lot of people, libertarians especially, and other early adopters of digital currency have often pointed to is that central banking and the big central banks, not just central banks, but the big banks that are central to the economy, the HSBCs, the JP Morgan, Citibank, Bank of America's, that do create money, that they do so without any ethics and without really they've created Ponzi schemes, and that they've created a world where we are pretty much in debt servitude. And so people have moved to things like Bitcoin, which hasn't been doing very well. But, I mean, if you bought Bitcoin 3 years ago, you're still, enjoying a 10x return, probably more than that. But I saw this article, and it highlights what people will do and why it's not really the central bank or who's creating the money that's the problem. Whether it's the federal government, which you have a little bit of accountability, or they have a little bit of accountability to you, or if it's some private individual. People have said, well, Bitcoin is not centrally controlled, and it's not a Ponzi scheme like the U.S. dollar is, and the Federal Reserve has created. Well, a Texas man who was running a firm that claimed to make virtual currency-based investments was accused of masterminding a $4.5 million Ponzi scheme in what U.S. prosecutors said was the first of its kind case tied to Bitcoins. So my point is not to bash the Bitcoin. We actually accept them. Donations in Bitcoin are heavily appreciated and lacking, to be honest. We would be more than happy to take your Bitcoin, and I think that at the end of the day, it might be more ethical than the U.S. dollar. The U.S. dollar is used as a tool to, put pressure on other governments. It's used as a global financial weapon. I could go on for an hour. I won't. But it's not the system itself, although it is problematic because you have something that is so globally adopted. But Bitcoin is not exempt. Just because you find people that are not in the federal government, not in the central banking business, doesn't mean that they're any more ethical and they can't create the same kind of scams and schemes that you will find in being conducted in U.S. dollars. So buyer beware, be forewarned. Investment groups and other scammers are all over the place trying to take advantage of people that that are enthusiasts about Bitcoin. And I like Bitcoin because it's outside of the system. It's outside of government control. It is a great experiment into what it could, what we could have instead of what we have today. And there's just as many reasons that I dislike the idea of a Bitcoin type virtual currency that we're all forced to use. I like it as an option. Apple Pay is a new option. They've been getting a lot of flack. Apple is definitely on the radar. They are a target. They are being harassed on a lot of levels. There's a lot of whistleblowers exposing Apple. They had the whole Apple Pay system, and now the pay merchants are going after one another. The whistleblowing about Apple and some of the ties to the Edward Snowden leaks and to the trying to think of the big term that they used for that. Anyway, the Apple was creating its own money, and that's what credit card companies do. They create their own money. They create debt, and that is to say that the U.S. dollar is pretty much the same thing. It's created. It is a debt instrument. It is to extinguish debt, but it itself has to be created out of debt. Same thing with Apple Pay. Same thing with Bitcoin's is a little different, but it's not a debt extinguisher, but it is a currency that is controlled by algorithms, which, in a world where you can pretty much guarantee that if somebody can make it, somebody can break it. If somebody can hack it, somebody can, take advantage of you and average people that are just not, abreast of the importance of it. The problem with things that are too complicated and too technical is that it really does, isolate a lot of people, ostracizes people from wanting to adopt it. So I guess it's a cautionary tale. You have JP Morgan, horrible. Central bankers have empowered, emboldened, and have let these people conduct criminal acts against the American people with impunity. Same thing for HSBC, for all of you across the pond. The LIBOR scandal continues. The Bank of America scandals continue. Billions of dollars are being paid out. And none of those people are going to go to jail. Difference, Bitcoin operators, Bitcoin Ponzi scheme operators, people that are not working with the federal government, they're going to slam this guy. This guy's going to jail. They're going to use it as a case why you should not use Bitcoin, why Bitcoin is scary and you don't have any kind of accountability, that it's worse than Wonga, which, I don't think it is. But I did want to mention this because it's not absent or immune to the same kind of manipulation that you're going to have with U.S. dollars or any other currency system. They're always going to have people that are going to scam other people privately or publicly. Private people, there's more of a chance that you will actually maybe get your money back, or that you may recoup some of that. I mean, with all of the fines that have been levied against these huge international banks, with all of the fines, I haven't seen any of the people being put back in their homes that were scammed out of them. I haven't seen any of the people in the U.S. Justice Department or the Commerce Department giving people back the money. It's like, well, we stole money from the people and now we'll give it to the government, which categorically takes money, extorts money from people for services. And in my case, a lot of things that I just don't, number one, I ethically disagree with. Number two, that I don't want. I don't want your services. I don't want your wars. I don't want your FDIC insurance. I don't really, maybe Social Security, Medicaid, all of those other, safety nets that we have put into, I think that should pay them out. But, I would be okay without those personally. If I could opt out of those systems and take my life and my money and risk it the way that I feel would be, more accountable to me. I mean, I'm one of these daring people, like many of you that live dangerously, that don't mind a little risk. I would rather live in a free world than one that is so safe that I have to show my ID to everyone, take off my shoes every time I get on a bus. I'm willing to deal with that kind of danger. That's the problem. We've legislated away danger, but people have never been more apt to be taken for a ride by predators in this country. Never before have you been able to be scammed so globally, so extensively by people that you will never find. Never in human history have we had the ability or the inability to protect ourselves at a human level. So point being is that the government has done nothing to right these wrongs. They've made a lot of money for themselves. They've hired a lot of other government creeps, a lot of government thugs to go after individuals. They've created a lot of other bureaucracies. They've created a lot of jobs for themselves and other mechanisms to give themselves power. They've empowered themselves and these agencies to kick down your door for just about any kind of violation. I mean, they've given themselves a lot of power. And I mean, look at the IRS. They're more interested in buying shotguns than they are in, going after these takes cheats and thieves. There's just no, there's no money for it. And that's what I always hear. It makes me so crazy mad. Well, we don't have the money to fund that. We can't go after these people. We just don't have the resources. You're telling me you don't have the resources. You're taxing every American that's alive. I don't know. I say 50% because I look at what I pay. I pay 33% or a third of all money in taxes of any kind of financial business gains. You make $300, the government wants 100. I guess if you're doing okay in this world, and that's pretty subjective. If you're if you're not on the dole completely, you're paying a ridiculous amount of taxes. I have a good friend that his wife was thinking about working, and she said we just can't do it because they would lose a lot of the insurance that they can't pay for. I don't know if I was railing on this show or one of the others or one of the interviews I did recently about, it might have been actually with my sister who can't, people come calling family members. Did you vote? Did you vote? And I said, look, for me, my wife and my son, I'm paying $810 a month for insurance that I barely use, that I'm forced to buy, that I cannot get any kind of break on. That's with a Humana X plan. I don't care if you know that I'm on Humana X, which is one of the exchange programs through Obamacare. People, oh yeah, Obamacare is giving everybody great affordable health care. $810, people. Think about that. Just digest that for a moment. Eat that. $810. That's 2 car payments, 2 brand new car payments. Nice cars. That's another home. That's a vacation home. That's that's a lot of food. It seems that every time I go to the store, it's at least $100, and usually more to feed my very small family. I mean, it's amazing to me. And he said, look, we just can't afford it. We're on CHIP, and the kids are getting free insurance from the government and free dental and all of these other things that are not free at all, but that they're not having to pay for. And so when you hear about the Obamacare, well, yeah, the poor people aren't paying, the rich people aren't paying. Only you out there in the middle class are being hit with these kind of fines and levies that are on their way. But I think it really, struck a chord with my my sister who believes, well, the government should give you free health care and free this and free that. There's nothing that's free. They're not giving you anything that's free. And because if they were, they would stop asking for tax money, right? Because we can't pay off the deficit. We'll go back there for a moment. And it really struck a chord. She said, wow, that's a lot of money. It absolutely is. And I don't know how many Americans can pay that. I don't know how many people can pay upwards of 50% of their income, and paying the high price of everything. Not to just sit here and cry about how I'm being raped by the government, but we really are. We really are, and that's why I just take a huge offense to the fact that we cannot prosecute these entities, these banks, and the people that have put so many in just a horrible predicament. I'm there too. I'm absolutely there. The amount of time and effort that I spend doing, just my regular job and doing this, will never be repaid, and in a financial sense. And I'm just like a lot of you on the roller coaster, hoping that common sense, hoping that somebody says, "Whoa, enough people just come to the conclusion that are in the same situation that you and I are in, that we just can't do it anymore. At some point, you just can't do it." And that's when it all kind of breaks down. When there's just not enough people that can afford $810 a month for insurance. So I know I'm going off into personal problems, but these are the kind of problems I know that I get a lot of feedback from you guys that are dealing with these things, especially middle-aged and young adults that are now being thrust into this ever stagnating economy. I mean, here's something that we'll tie it up with here. Claim 50% of today's occupations will no longer exist in a decade. And whenever you think about taxes, whenever you think about the ridiculous things that you have to do to pay the man, you realize how many jobs are created in this bureaucracy. And that's what we have. We have a lot of people out there doing jobs that really produce nothing. And it's not to say if you work at H&R Block, you're a bad person. And I have a day job where I'm in the service economy. I don't produce anything. 50% of the occupations today will no longer exist. So the more that you refine, the more that you clean things up, you realize we've built an economy and a society that is doing a lot of things that are just not important, that are just not helpful. People at H&R Block, helpful, keeping you out of jail and charging you $100 per piece of paper they file. And the reason most people go there is so that they can get that little loan. We'll give you the money now that you're going to get from the government later. It's a payday loan place. It's another predator. But it's not to disparage the people that work there. It's job's a job. And when you have to pay the amount of money that I pay for food and insurance, you really cannot turn things down that otherwise you probably would not do. That's part of why I do this podcast, because people are I would say 90% of the U.S. population is doing stuff that doesn't help anybody, that they would rather not be doing, and that is not helpful. So anyway, Business Standard has this. Take it for what it is. A paradigm shift is expected to be witnessed in the way workplaces operate over the next 15 years, making nearly 50% of occupations existing today redundant by 2025. A report has said artificial intelligence will transform businesses and the work that people do. Process work, customer work, the vast swaths of middle management will disappear, it said. The report, titled Fast Forward 2030. Read this. It's worth your time. I spent 15 minutes reading this and going through it, highlighting it. The future of work and the workplace has been prepared by reality consulting firm CBRE, a Chinese-based. Genesis, a property developer, after interviewing 220 experts, business leaders, and young people from Asia, Europe, and North America. So my point is that H&R Block, okay, you got a guy in there that's doing your paperwork, blah, blah, blah. It tells you how much money you owe the government. That's a redundant job. Okay, that's already a redundant job. TurboTax already does that job. and it does it better. And people are more apt to trust a computer than they do people. A recent report said most people would rather take orders from a robot or a computer that divvied out their responsibilities and duties at work. And I thought, man, that's crazy. It's got to be, just one of these shock titles, a little clickbait for, I think it was on Vox or one of those websites, the BuzzFeed. And I was like, oh, well, I'll click on it just to see. And, lo and behold, the reality is that these jobs don't need to be here, that these jobs probably won't be here very long. And the need for, it was that the majority of people thought, well, this computer's more ethical than my boss. My boss might give an assignment or something important to his favorite buddy or somebody that's just, his fave. They might choose to give a promotion to somebody who, I don't know, is having sex with them. That is more beneficial to them in their eyes, right? So arbitrarily, we decide what we value, whereas a computer would look at it more logically and say, okay, well, you do this better, so maybe you would do this, and it'd be more efficient. Would delegate responsibilities to employees more fairly. And I've got a pretty good boss, and I don't know if the computer would do much better. I don't know if he does much better than the computer, or if the computer would do much better than him. Basically, figuring out which things are the most high priority for you to do, and which ones are more or less important than others. Which duties are that should be allocated to me, and which ones should go to other coworkers based on how much work I did. So he does a pretty good job. He's pretty fair, but he's not a computer. So, I guess with all of this, the world is definitely changing. Most of the things that people are worried about, the deficit, the part-time employees at Walmart, that whole system, those jobs, those people will not be doing what they're doing today in just 10 to 15 years. Maybe this is going to happen 2030, 2040. I'm 36, so I will get to see this. My son is 8 months old. He will get to see all of this. So I know a lot of you, and I get this all the time, and this is how sad it is. This is what I'll end the show on. How many times do you ask somebody, or you start talking about one of these issues that is, coming down the road? It's right there in front of people, and you get this response. You email me. I know that you've had this. You talk to somebody that's a little bit older, and they said, man, I'm glad I'll be dead when that happens. I hope that I'm dead. I hear it all the time. I hope when all of this happens, I'm dead so that I don't have to see this. We live in a world where people are looking forward to death more than the future, at least some of you out there, and that is a pretty appalling thing, to be quite honest. All right, we did have some support. I know I'm going a little bit long here, but I want to thank everybody who does support the show, the few and far between, but some of you out there that do value it enough to make a financial contribution to the show. I value you, and your support is never forgotten. We don't have corporate sponsors. We don't sell you gold. Silver is only $15 an ounce. If you bought it at 40, it wasn't a great deal. Might be today. We don't push it. We don't tell you every day, oh my God, silver's down. You should buy some from us. And you'll note that all of the people that are big gold bugs and want you to buy precious metals, you're not hearing those big reports why you should buy today. Why? Because the price is down. Now, if gold shoots up $300, if silver goes to $25, you're going to hear all about it, why you should give them some money. So we don't do that here. We're uncompromisable. We don't take payday loan vendors. We don't sell your precious freaking time. I try not to waste it. I think that your time is valuable, and we appreciate you spending your time with us. So I want to give proper appreciation and thanks to those that support us. Paul in Branson, Missouri. He's the big dog. $100 for Blacklisted Radio. No comment there. Karen in Yakima, Washington. She came in with $42. Thank you, ma'am. Tigger from some unknown location, maybe outside of the United States, gave us $33.33, which I think is very appropriate. So appropriate that I was going to give it a... Yeah, so thank you for the $33.33. Jamie in Ames, Iowa, gave us $33 as well, which is always nice. Thank you for that. We have Michael Gallatin, who in Tennessee. Michael in Gallatin, Tennessee, gave us $20 USD. Paige in Waco, Texas, 20 as well. Roger in Oklahoma City, $15, and Jason in Rochester, New York, came in with $10.10. So not too bad. Not too bad. That's for 2 weeks because we didn't do the show last week because of, well, a lot of things that just pop up. So we're going to be doing more, and your financial support allows us to do a whole lot more because, as I said before, we only have so many hours in the day, and when you're paying what I pay for insurance, you really have to, this is my second job. This is my third job, really. We live in an economy where we're all doing so many things trying to stay ahead. And that's why I think that it's kind of, when I hear about the minimum wage for Walmart workers, those people, probably deserve a little bit more money. I don't doubt that. But those people are not going to be, or not part of the new system where everybody's doing anything they can to make a buck. Everybody's working from home or driving an Uber car because we just, all of these huge companies that used to exist, and these jobs where you could go to work for 40 years, retire from an IBM or a Verizon or an AT&T and, get a pension. Those days are numbered. So that's why I do this show, because we are moving into a different world that's going to look a lot different. There's going to be some things that we like. There's a lot of things that I try to highlight on the show that I think are very positive. But at the same time, there's a lot of things that if you're not ready for, if you're not out there in front of, could easily kick you in the ass. And let's be honest, about 90% of America has no idea what's about to happen. You saw that with all of the wedge issues and items that people were voting on. Thank you so much for continuing to support the show. Those of you that do, the rest of you, you can thank them for this being completely free and without advertisements and other bullcrap being forced down your throat. We don't sell your time and energy to corporate sponsors. Other people do, and that's okay. That's why we're different, and just one of the many reasons that we're a little bit different. I want to thank you for continuing to support the show. Let other people know about it. If you find it of value, some other people will as well, and share it with them. Until next week, everyone, have a great weekend. Take care.